Happy Tuesday, everybody. Here's what's coming up tonight on Now. Yesterday, Governor LePage talked about possibly removing sheriffs if they don't comply with ICE regulations. First of all, can he even do that? Second of all, what do the sheriffs think? We are diving deep into that topic today.
Plus, we're talking with a detainee about what this even means, how he's kind of trying to navigate through all of this. And
we will tackle the giant topic of adoption. A lot of layers to it, but it's going to be an issue that we talk about tonight on Now.
This is News Center Now.
I think he's wrong on this issue. In fact, I know he's wrong. And if he wants to apologize to us, that's fine. We can all move on.
Another Maine sheriff says he will not follow the governor's orders on detaining potentially illegal immigrants.
I think there are some real problems with the foster care adoption program, but I think there's some wonderful things about it too.
Tonight's season premiere of This Is Us is about adoption and foster care. We'll meet a Maine family who has lived through this difficult but wonderfully rewarding experience. Hey, hello everybody, I'm Lee Goldberg.
And I'm Amanda Hill. We will talk about adoption and This Is Us later on Now. Right now, though, we are talking about immigration and constitutional law. Yesterday, two Maine sheriffs came forward saying they would not detain persons of interest for ICE without the proper documentation. First, it was Cumberland County Sheriff Kevin Joyce, then York County Sheriff Bill King. They insist it is within their rights to deny ICE's requests, especially if there is no legal reason to hold someone. Governor LePage says he will take action against these sheriffs for disobeying federal law.
All right, so this is a topic you guys are all talking about on social media, hundreds and hundreds of comments and reactions on our social media pages. When there's a story that you'd like to know more about, that's why we're here, so we do some digging. Today, we'll talk to the sheriffs, a constitutional lawyer, and even one of the detainees in question.
But we also want to hear from you, so go to pulse.newscentermaine.com to vote in today's Pulse poll. Should sheriffs be allowed to override ICE requests? Don't forget, you can also vote using the Pulse tab on your mobile app.
All right, so the Now team is going to take a look at all of these things. We've got the legal and personal implications of this dispute. Christina Rex is live outside the Cumberland County Jail, where the story began. She contacted every sheriff in the state to see where they stand on this issue.
And Chris Costa has the personal story of one detainee who would be directly affected by Governor LePage's order, and he went looking for answers about the governor's authority over sheriffs. We'll start, though, with Christina tonight. Christina, how are Maine's sheriffs responding?
Well, Lee and Amanda, they're not responding to us, at least. Two sheriffs have come out publicly against the governor's order, but the rest did not answer my emails that I sent this morning. And I want to start by clarifying, before we get into this, what exactly an ICE detainer is. Now, it's this piece of paper, and it's sent to sheriffs across the country by the federal organization for certain jailmates who are suspected for any possible reason of being in the country illegally. Here's what that piece of paper says. It says, it is requested that you maintain custody of the subject for a period not to exceed 48 hours. That means once a person finishes his or her sentence or is released from jail for any reason, sheriffs are asked to hold him or her in jail for an additional 48 hours while ICE determines his or her immigration status. But York County Sheriff Bill King says he won't do that.
I'm not going to make any apologies for trying to save the taxpayers of York County money. And if I get removed as sheriff, it's, I guess that's his prerogative.
York County Sheriff Bill King standing strong in his refusal to honor any detainers from ICE, despite threats from the governor.
There's likelihood you're going to be hearing some stories about some sheriffs being removed from their duties.
The governor's office making the threat official today, sending a letter ordering the sheriffs to detain any person requested by ICE.
I think this is about following the law, and the governor believes that everyone who's sworn to uphold the law should follow the law.
But Sheriffs Kevin Joyce and Bill King say no way. They say holding inmates for extra time only to determine their immigration status is unconstitutional and has even led to serious lawsuits in other states.
They sued, and the taxpayers of those counties had to pay out considerable amounts of sums.
King says he wants taxpayers to understand one thing.
The sheriffs that are not honoring ICE requests are doing so for their protection.
He says he doesn't fear for his job, but he does have one message for the governor.
I understand it's a very difficult job. He's misinformed on this issue, and that I think that if he would just stop talking about it and let us do our job to the best way that we were elected to do.
And the governor was very clear about the fact that he plans to take action against any sheriff who won't comply with ICE. Sheriff King even told me that the Sheriff's Association has sought out legal counsel at this point just in case anything goes south with the governor. But does the governor actually have the power to fire a sheriff? Chris Costa spoke to an expert on the Maine Constitution to find out. Chris?
Well, Christina, here's how the process works. It's a little bit confusing. According to the Maine Constitution, a person files a complaint about a sheriff when they feel he or she is not doing his or her job lawfully or faithfully. The sheriff is notified once that complaint gets filed and gets the chance to defend his or herself in a hearing. But the judge of that hearing is the governor, who then decides whether to remove the sheriff from his or her position. In this case, that could make for a quick decision.
Yes, it certainly vests an awful lot of power in the governor, and I think it should just be hoped that the governor won't use that power for narrow political partisan ends.
We spoke to Marshall Tinkle, who is a Maine Constitution attorney, and he's written a book on the document. He says the governor's position creates some gray area. Does an executive order count as the law? Could the governor use that as grounds for a complaint for not performing a duty under the law? Tinkle says an executive order is probably not the force of law, but that could be subject to interpretation. Also, can the governor act as the judge and the prosecutor? Again, a gray area, but Tinkle thinks the complaint must come from someone else in order to hold up. Now, a Maine statute says the complaint would come from the county commissioner, but Tinkle said he was not sure if that narrows the law so that the complaint can only come from a county commissioner, or if it can come from any citizen. He says the complaint would likely not be considered if it comes from someone in a different county from the sheriff he or she is complaining about. He says there is not a lot of case law on this, which makes it difficult to figure out. Meanwhile, there are 7 detainees in the Cumberland County Jail and 1 in the York County Jail. Some of these inmates do not know why there are detainers out for them. We spoke to Franklin Salcido, who's being held at the York County Jail.
I got like a shock, surprise.
Franklin Salcido is behind bars on a drug trafficking charge, but ICE sent York County Sheriff Bill King a detainer for him this past July.
I have my resident card and everything. I have my social. I work here, and I'm 100% sure I'm legally.
Salcido says he is a permanent resident of Lawrence, Massachusetts, and wonders why ICE would have any reason to investigate his immigration status.
I asked what's the reason for it, and they said they cannot tell me why.
Sheriff King says Salcido's guilty plea on one of his charges may have triggered the detainer, but he says he will not enforce it, even after Salcido finishes his court proceedings.
The judge says, you know, you've served enough time served, and releases them. Now I'm stuck with an INS request, an INS detainer. Do I keep them? And I won't, because of the recent court cases that have happened.
Salcido says the uncertainty of being kept in jail or possibly deported is the most troubling.
That's a torture. Yes, me thinking every day for almost 3 months. I have an eye detainee. Why? We got family and they don't understand that.
What can happen in that 48 hours that can't be happening right now?
What's the reason why I have a detainee on it? Like, I got my paper, you know? I even give you my social number. I could get a copy on my resident card for 10 years. It's frustrating. You don't even know. Sometimes you want to commit suicide.
Now, Salcido is still awaiting court dates on his multiple charges in different counties. The sheriff says he has required Salcido to go speak with a mental health counselor. Now, we reached out to ICE to learn why they issued a detainer for Salcido and to confirm if he is in this country legally or not. But we've not heard back. Lee and Amanda?
All right, thanks, Chris. Looking at our Pulse poll right now, fairly split. 52% say yes, Sheriffs should be allowed to override ICE requests.
Yeah, so many people with a lot to say about this. The poll's going to be open until the end of the show, so you have plenty of time to get your votes in now. Go to pulse.newscentermaine.com or the Pulse tab on our mobile apps.
All right, we'll take a quick break here. Equifax losing its leader in the middle of the company's biggest PR nightmare. Who is leaving the company in the middle of the data breach scandal? Next.
And adoption is a wonderful act of love, but in Maine, there are more parents looking for a child to love than there are kids looking for a loving home. We'll have some of those details when we come back.
Importantly, I want to let you know what we're doing to help those impacted by this.
Reporting Service Equifax has left the company. Here's a look at news now. The company's board of directors announced this morning that CEO and chairman Richard Smith has retired. The move comes weeks after a data breach at Equifax that affected the personal information of 143 million people, including more than 500,000 Mainers.
Maine Senator Susan Collins may have put the final nail in the coffin of a health care proposal. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says that the Graham-Cassidy plan to repeal and replace Obamacare will not go to the floor for a vote. Collins was the third GOP member to pledge a no vote, joining Senator McCain and Senator Paul. Republicans say they will now focus on tax reform.
Another aggressive move to curtail the opioid epidemic, this time in Florida. The governor says he will propose legislation that will place a 3-day limit on prescribed opioids. Strict conditions must be met for a 7-day supply. This comes less than a week after CVS announced their 7-day cap for acute ailments, a policy which most of you disagreed with, according to a Pulse poll that we had.
All right, we'll take a quick break. Still to come on Now.
More families who are looking to add an infant to their home, than there are available infants.
The adoption process can be a long and stressful ordeal, but one with an extremely rewarding payoff. That story after the break.
And it feels like summer right now, but is fall taking over by the weekend? Keith has the full forecast next.
I know you guys didn't have a perfect marriage. You just lost a child, and you both just wanted me. Right away, just like that.
Complicated.
It's something people say when they don't want to tell the truth.
The show that made you laugh and cry uncontrollably returns tonight. After a year of waiting, This Is Us premieres Season 2 at 9 o'clock right here on News Center. Tonight's episode is about adoption and the tough choices that come with adding a member to your family. Now, the topic of adoption can be a very emotional one. In Maine, there are more parents looking for babies than there are babies in need of parents. Penny Collins is with Adoption Partners of Maine. Their job is to work with Maine women who are experiencing a crisis pregnancy, which is an unplanned pregnancy or someone thinking about adoption and pairing them up with Maine adoptive families. The process can be expensive, it can be long, and it can be very emotionally draining as well as fulfilling.
You have to be aware that it's not going to be easy. It's going to take a while. It's not a hero's activity. You know, real people and real grief and joy and love is involved. It's a beautiful thing, but it's complicated.
Another variable that can make adoption complicated is when you're a foster parent. If you want to adopt your foster child, you have to start from the very beginning.
Yeah, it's new sets of fingerprints, new home studies, new interviews, all of it. Here is one family's journey through that process. Just as Kate Sinclair's life was falling apart, someone she had not yet met was about to help put it back together. Kate's son Kyle had spent the first 9 months of his life in the NICU at Maine Medical Center. He had over 45 surgeries and spent a good part of his life in hospitals before passing away at just 8 years old. It was toward the end of Kyle's life that Kate came up with the idea to apply to become a foster parent.
And so I thought, if I get my license, I can apply for kids that need medical help that, you know, those aren't the kids at the top of the list that people want to adopt, unfortunately. And that's sort of pretty much where it came.
Deciding on being a foster parent fulfilled the need that Kate had, but then it was time to sell the idea to her other children.
For them, it was confusing, and they weren't very excited about it in the beginning.
I so wasn't having it. I wanted nothing to do with Willow at first. I think that I was more against it than anyone else in the family.
2 days after getting her license to be a foster parent in the mail, Kate got a call. There was a baby girl weighing 4 pounds and suffering from severe withdrawal due to drug use by her birth mother that needed help. Just like that, baby Willow was on her way to the St. Clair's house for what at first was to be temporarily.
As hard as it's going to be on me or you or whoever does it as an adult, you have to put that aside, because this child is either coming from a very difficult situation or has just been born and is probably coming from a difficult situation, and they need your love.
After about 6 months of foster care, it became clear that reuniting Willow with her birth mother would not be happening. The St. Clairs decided to start the process of adopting the little girl who had helped make their family whole since she came through the door.
When you go from foster parenting to adoption, you have to start completely over. People say a lot and joke that it's harder to obviously adopt a baby than it is to have one of your own. That's a 100% true statement. It is a lot of work. And it should be to some extent, because you don't want these kids just going to anybody.
The process of going from foster parent to adoptive parent can be very time-consuming and emotionally draining, but 3 years after meeting Willow, she finally became an official member of the family, making it all well worth it.
I think adopting is a really good thing. It puts children that are in tough times or like don't even have a mom or dad into good houses, and I think if somebody was thinking about adopting, I think I'd say do it.
We have the most unconventional family, but I wouldn't change it in a second, because she's so happy and she's so loved, and to me that's what matters.
A lot of love in that family. All the families that take on that the adoption process and go through that, a lot of love. So
yeah, a lot of work though. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, so it was hot again today.
Summer again.
We're gonna do it again tomorrow. We're actually getting one extra day out of this. One more hot day tomorrow, which we weren't sure. Thought it might be in the 70s. I think we're gonna be warm again tomorrow. High temperature officially 90 in Millinocket. Very unusual, obviously. 90 in Berlin, and a little bit cooler along the coast. We did though get to 81 in Portland, 87 in Lewiston, and 88 in Freiburg. Take a look at these dew points. They're high. That's really the thing here, right? That's what's more unusual, in my opinion, is how high these dew points are, around 70. That is some humid air, even for the middle of summer, and certainly is unusually moist, if you will, for this time of the year. You're not imagining things. September has been warm. Here's the month thus far, color-coded for your convenience, and you can see where we've been lately, and we're going to continue in that direction until Thursday, and then we'll start trending at and a little bit below average. But the whole month pretty much will have been above average, and we're in the top 5 for that for the month of September. Talk more about that in a second. We're still in the warm sector through tomorrow. The change here is the front has slowed down a little bit. So another warm day tomorrow. Front comes through tomorrow night, shower, thunderstorm, and then much cooler air comes in Thursday, but you don't really feel it until Friday and Saturday. That's when we're significantly cooler, back into the 60s for highs, and some of us will be in the 50s for highs on Saturday. Hour by hour forecast tomorrow. We're going to start with some fog along the coastline. We'll burn that off. We'll get into the mid and upper 80s inland, right around 80 along the coastline. Here come the showers overnight. Not everybody gets them though. I think some of us will miss these showers. They get out of here Thursday morning. Thursday afternoon is bright, but significantly cooler. How much cooler? Take a look at Saturday's high temperatures. 60s, 50s, these are your highs on Saturday. But there's more. I think when you look into the mid-range, there's a signal for warmth coming back mid to late next week. It probably won't be this hot, but it wouldn't shock me to be back into the 80s here. So if you like fall, you'll like the weekend. I love Sunday. I think it's kind of a perfect day, 68 or so, and sunny, which is pretty much like that room temperature, and it stays nice on Monday. And again, I think we do return to some warmth maybe Wednesday, Thursday of next week. So I'm not writing this summer thing off quite yet.
Those numbers work for me.
I know, it's working out for everyone, I think.
It kind of reminds me of another place.
Oh, he's still trying to make this happen.
Go ahead.
Stop trying to make fetch happen.
You can say it. Go ahead.
Mandiego.
Mandiego.
I don't like it.
He said it. All right. High school football, because it's football weather, right? You picked the Marshwood-Westbrook game as this week's hometown showdown. 62% of the vote. The Marshwood Hawks will take off for Westbrook on Friday night, so tune into our 5th quarter coverage for a special preview of that matchup. And we want to see what's coming up on News Turn at 5:30. Amanda's over there with Cindy for more on that.
Maine Diego, still not a thing, Lee. Still not a thing. Cindy's going to preview what's coming
Sounds cool, though. I kind of like it.
It kind of works.
Yeah. Coming up at 5:30, one town official in Augusta was overheard saying today that somebody in her town was kind of skirting the whole marijuana social club law already, and they were operating something out of their home. Well, we sent Tennyson Coleman to check out what's called the Hippie Hideaway. He's going to give you an inside look coming up tonight at 5:30. Also ahead, countless Mainers have donated time or money or goods to those affected by the streak of disastrous hurricanes. Well, today we met a group of volunteers heading for Puerto Rico, as many Puerto Rican citizens are doing anything they can to get off that island, some of them coming here. Those stories and more at 5:30.
Right, relief will help. Thanks, Cindy. Now continues in a moment.
After a weekend that saw one of America's favorite pastimes unravel into a divisive topic, I had an unsettling thought in the weather office this morning. Are natural disasters the only unifying force left in our country right now? When Harvey slammed Texas and Irma into Florida, there was no argument, no finger pointing, no Facebook emoji polls asking for our opinion. We all came together and recognized these people, our people, need help. The reason these weather disasters unite us so strongly is because we can all imagine ourselves in their position. Sure, maybe you don't own a house in Texas, but you can imagine your house flooding in a 500-year flood with no insurance and no way to rebuild. You don't have to live in a hurricane-prone area, but you can imagine the fear as Category 5 Irma barrels towards your home with your family inside. My role is to inform people of the weather, but it's also to try to save lives when natural disasters are imminent. I'm very proud of that part of my job, and I take it very seriously. And it means a lot to me when everyone rallies behind those impacted and us forecasting the events. But my question is, can we learn something from how we respond to hurricanes, floods, and tornadoes? Can we learn to put ourselves in somebody else's shoes and understand what they might be going through, even when it doesn't involve Mother Nature? To be clear, I really don't care what side of this NFL argument you're on. I don't. I'm tired of it. Let that debate rage for weeks on Twitter between people without profile pictures. I would just love to see us come together without people having to lose their homes and often their lives.
All right, September 26, 2017. I agree with Keith Carson. So I just want to make sure you write that down.
Thank you.
Well said. It is bizarre what inspires people to rally around different causes, and I would love to certainly see more of it than less of it. So I think you're spot on, kid.
I'd love for it to not take a disaster. Bottom line.
Well done.
Okay, guys. Really quickly, looking at our Pulse poll, 56% said sheriffs should be allowed to override ICE requests. Again, still very tight there. So
all right, News Center at 5:30 starts right now.